Hello everyone and welcome back to a brand new Football Manager experiment where we take a look at what would happen if every single Premier League club was owned by fans. So there's going to be no more billionaires, there's going to be no more money being pumped into the clubs, although that could still happen. I don't know if that's possible with a fan-owned club, but the clubs are all being returned directly to the fans. Now, the way that I've done this is through the pre-game editor, so I've had to go through every individual team's ownership structure in the tool available through Steam, and I have changed their ownership, if we can have a look at it, to a fan-owned club, which means that they now have elections. So that is what we're going to be focusing this experiment on, is those elections, the promises that are made, and the way that that will work out. Now, it means that I've not changed the actual owner or chairman, so you can see at Arsenal, the owner and chairman, still the same thing there. I'm not sure what kind of impact that will have on the game. If we have a look at Bournemouth and their staff, you can see again, owner, chairman, still both there. So I wasn't sure how to change the owner of the club in the right way, so I'm not sure how that will work out in a fan-owned club, but we can almost guarantee that people like the chairmans will be disappearing from the club quite quickly. So Chips Keswick should be leaving quite soon, but I'm just very interested to see how this is going to play out. I've not changed anything else about the club. So the way that this is going to work is I've set up every team to have elections every 3 years on the 15th of July. That'll make it easy for us to track the election campaigns and the results that happen on a regular basis. And in today's episode, we're going to go forward to the first election date, have a look at the messages being put out there. We'll then jump forward 3 years, take a look at the next election and the messages being put out that time, and go 3 more years again and see where the clubs have got to 6 years into the future, having been owned by the fans. Also worth noting, I've only done this for the Premier League teams, so other Championship teams coming up will have a normal ownership structure. So if we look at a club like Chelsea and their ownership structure, you can see again 15th of July is their date of the election. So we're going to go forward to the 14th of July now and have a look at the news information in the game to see what things are being promised by the respective people running for election. Well, here we are on the 14th of July, and if we start with a random club like maybe Leicester and have a look at their news information, you can see the countdown continues to Leicester elections. There's a Leicester election fever, elections on the horizon. A few news stories here. The first one just says that the chairman is eligible to serve a second term and will announce shortly if he's standing for re-election. The election fever says that he has decided against a second term and that several people are now running to replace him. And if we look at the countdown to Leicester elections, we can see Ronaldo Ranger is seeking to replace the outgoing chairman and has made promises by looking into the opportunity of a brand new stadium for Leicester City. Now, there's a few different options for what they can promise. I'm not familiar with all of them, not by heart anyway, but if we have a look at Liverpool and their club, their countdown to elections continues as well. They've got Morgan Allaby looking to replace outgoing owner John Henry, and he's also looking to build a new stadium at Liverpool, which might be quite popular, although given the expansion, I'd be a bit surprised at that. It looks like stadiums are the popular option. At Man City, again, somebody looking to replace the Sheikh Mansour, which is quite interesting. Ellis McHale will be coming in, so I'm not sure if that will change their Sugar Daddy status. I'd assume not, because I think Sugar Daddy would be attached to the ownership style of the club rather than necessarily the individual owner when it comes to a fan club, but we can check that after the election takes place. But he said he's not going to make any grandiose election promises. He's going to keep things running as they are. At Manchester United fans will enjoy this. A new owner, I think, is coming in. Sol Riley is going to replace owner Avram Glazer, who is leaving the club. Again, no grandiose election promises. Middlesbrough, what are they going to promise? If we can scroll down to the news about this, they're going to restructure their debt. They don't have an awful lot of debt, so I'm not sure about that, but they don't seem to have any elections news in their screen. So if we go down to Southampton and try and find this news, it all depends, because it's the transfer window, sometimes it gets crowded out, but we can see that Jeff Keynes is going to take over from Katharina Liebherr, or Katharina, and he's going to look at a new stadium for Southampton as well. Some very big promises being put out there at the moment by the Premier League owners, so it'll be interesting to see if any of them can actually deliver on those promises. If we have a look at Bournemouth as the last one, and have a look at their news information, scrolling down we can see their countdown continues. And he's going to run the club exactly as it was before. So similar themes coming out there. I think they can also promise to sign a new player, put money into the club, and there's another one which I think is change the manager. So I'm not sure if any of those are actually on the table at the moment. We'll just take a quick look at Sunderland. And they're looking at a new stadium as well. It looks like because of the money in the Premier League, that is a popular option. But let's go forward 3 years in time now, past the elections, because I think a lot of places it's not really going to matter who wins. It's more what they do over 3 years. So we'll go forward 3 years and take a look at where they are in the election cycle. Well, we are now 3 years in the future. You can see the Premier League has jumped into second place in the competition reputation rankings. And if we have a look at Arsenal and their current general information, you can see that they are preparing for elections on the 16th of July. The next election date, 16th of July. If we look at their staff screen, and the owner of the club is currently Colin Wise. He is the new owner of Arsenal, having won the elections. If we look at the news screen for this, is there any news out here on the elections that we can take a look at? We can see the countdown continues, and Vadane Burnell is seeking to oust the incumbent Colin Wise and continue to run the club as it has been doing up to now. Other big clubs that might be worth taking a look at, Manchester City, especially after they lost Sheikh Mansour. They're still a rich team. General information, preparing for elections on the 16th of July. If we look at their staff screen, you can see that Craig Price actually won ownership in the elections. I'm just curious, they do still have a front end sugar daddy, so that is attached to the ownership style of the club when a fan owned group comes in. They've still got all the same managing directors and all the other news alongside that. If we look at their election information though, if we can scroll down towards it, the countdown continues, and Craig Price has said if he is re-elected, he will give the club's finances a considerable boost. That is a new one for us to take a look at. We are actually going to go past the date of election today, so we'll go to the 16th of July, which is a new date of elections for all of these clubs, and see how they're doing. Another team to take a look at, maybe we can have a look at Southampton. They're currently rich, their general information, still preparing for elections. Their staff screen, James Cox now the manager of Southampton, and if we look at their news screen and the elections promises, Lamel Sonner is looking to oust the incumbent, but is planning to continue to run the club. So no promises of new stadiums at the moment. And if we look at the facilities in the Premier League, we will see, or the stadiums rather, that there are no new stadiums as far as I can tell. There's not even an expansion to any of the stadiums. So those big promises never really came to be, which might see a few of the chairmen actually disappear. Let's have a look at Spurs and how they're doing as well. If we look at their staff ownership, you can see they're still managed by Daniel Levy. He managed to hang on to his position. They are preparing for elections as well. It'll be interesting to see what the news is for that. Daniel Levy managed to hang on to his ownership, and Brennan Starkey is seeking to replace outgoing chairman Daniel Levy, and has promised to look at building a new stadium, even though they've already got a new stadium. That is a very bold promise to make if you're the new prospective owner of Tottenham Hotspur. One last team, let's have a look at West Ham and their general information. Again, still preparing for elections, always worth checking. And they are currently have got Ken Hodcroft as their chairman. If we look at their news and look at the election screen, we can see that he's going to continue running the club. The guy who wants to take over is going to continue running the club and will not make any grandiose election promises. So some familiar themes coming up, less about the stadiums, having had a quick glance through this information. It is just worth taking a look at the stages of the Premier League over the last 3 years just to see if anything interesting happened. Manchester United won the last title and the title before that. Spurs won the one before that. So Daniel Levy, one of the few owners who managed to keep his position, did actually win the Premier League with Spurs in the first year. They then dropped down to 4th and 5th, so they are dropping down a bit. Manchester United storming the league the last 2 years, 290 plus point totals. Manchester City missing out on the title with 90 points. That is very, very harsh. I think that would win you the league title in all but about 3 seasons in Premier League history. If we have a look at the transfer history of the Premier League as well, we can see James Rodriguez went to Manchester United, £58 million. City spending a bit of money. All the big clubs spending a little bit of money this season. Year before that, £83 million for Anthony Martial to PSG. Philippe Coutinho left as well, but United did sign Ousmane Dembele and Lewandowski. They also brought in quite a few other big name players, so they're putting out the money. Other clubs putting out money. Chelsea are in there. Man City not as much as maybe you would expect. The year before that, again, United, the big spenders, £112 million on Bernardo Silva. You can see that their owner has pumped a lot of money into the transfer budget, which is quite good for them. They're bringing in the cash. Griezmann also coming in for £85 million. So a lot of money being spent in the Premier League. I'm not sure they usually spend that much money that early on, but I might be wrong on that. Maybe you guys can let me know in the comments. Maybe that is a symptom of people seeking to get re-elected, but we'll have to keep an eye on the screen, because I think we can expect some very large transfers to come in, especially if people promise money, like I think it was a Manchester City owner who promised a lot of money. So it'll be interesting to see where their transfers go in 3 years time. But let's go forward to the 16th of July now and just take a proper look at that election handover. Well, we are now past the date of election. If we have a look at Arsenal and their news information screen, you can see that they're currently in the process of bringing in a new manager, and Wise won the elections. Colin Wise won it by a comfortable margin. Looking forward to taking the club forward. Colin Wise saying that he's going to continue running the club in the same manner. If we drop down to maybe Bournemouth and have a look at theirs, the election day does arrive, and Josh Sessegnon, looking to outplace the current chairman, was looking to build a new stadium, and Sessegnon did win the Bournemouth election. So it'll be interesting to see if Bournemouth get their new stadium at any point. If we drop down another couple to maybe Crystal Palace, who we've not looked at before, and then scroll down, the Thomas Howe has told the media if he gets re-elected, he's going to continue running the club in the same manner. He did win the election. The interesting club really is Manchester City. I think if we roll down, we can see that Arsenal approached for Guardiola, which is quite interesting. I don't think they got him in the end. But if we have a look, the election day did arrive, and Danny Dickinson was looking to outsee incumbent and was promising to bring in a lot of money. And Dickinson did win the Manchester City election, so it'd be interesting to see if they make big signings based on that. But it looks like it's mostly just the same information that keeps coming up, and it's more about the outcome of what happens 3 years after rather than the news information on the elections itself. Again, Liverpool was going to continue to keep running the club, as they said. So it's more about whether they promise the money and if they actually deliver on that. We saw last time lots of people promising new stadiums, none of which were actually delivered, which was not a surprise. But it might take longer than 3 years to build a stadium anyway. But it'll be interesting to see. I think the transfers is a big one to keep an eye on. So we'll go forward now 3 years, and we'll just see if clubs like Manchester City did get a big transfer boost. Well, here we are again, 3 years ahead of time, ahead of the next set of elections. And you can see the Premier League now at the top of the rankings. And if we have a look at Arsenal and their history, you can see they've gone back up to the top of the table, actually winning the Premier League with Massimiliano Allegri as their manager. If we look at their general information screen, you can see they're preparing for the elections on the 16th of July. I think a gap here must have pushed them back a day. And if we look at their staff screen, currently owned by Colin Wise, who was there before. the news screen is going to be an interesting one. We're not going to spend too much time on this because we keep going a bit round in circles. The countdown continued. Brian McGrath was looking to oust incumbent Colin Wise and was going to look to build a new stadium. So another person looking to build a new stadium. I'm not sure Arsenal need a new stadium, so I'm not sure how good the game is at distinguishing between these things. If we have a look at Chelsea, they've got the countdown to the elections currently going. Again, looking at new stadiums. Everybody's looking for a new stadium. I'm interested to see if anybody actually built one in, because it looks like these promises lead to absolutely nothing at the moment. If we go back to the Premier League screen and the stadiums, we can see that there are no new stadiums as far as I can tell. Not even expansions to any of the stadiums. They're all still in the same place. What a surprise. The transfer screen might be a bit more interesting because the money was promised. If we drop back to the 1920 season, Manchester City were the team that were promised money. They spent up to £78 million on Charlie Musonda. A couple of big transfers in for Iwobi and Bernardeschi. The year after that, Real Madrid were the biggest transfer, taking a player from Liverpool, but City did sign Thiago Maia for £63 million. They also put out a couple of £50 million transfers with Donnarumma and Henriks, so they did go out and spend a bit of cash. Three of the four biggest transfers. Liverpool also spending £44.5 million on Will Hughes. The year after that, again Man City at the top. Guedes, the biggest transfer, £55 million, and 48 on Jonathan Tah. The two biggest domestic, the three biggest transfers from English clubs. £52 million from Koke. So it looks like their owner did deliver on the cash. Manchester United disappearing to nowhere on the financial transfer screen. If we look at the stages and last few seasons of the Premier League, the 1920 season went to Manchester United, another title for them, and the season after that they won it as well, before missing out to Arsenal, who finished with 86 points. So the current past winners, United doing very well, but Arsenal have come back and won the Premier League with Allegri in charge. Now, I think I'm going to leave this experiment there because this is a brand new one for me. I was interested to see what fan ownership would do, but it's hard to tell the impact, certainly in the short term, is what I picked up on this. It's very difficult unless I go through every single club individually to find each individual promise, which would take a very long time. It's hard to track what the election promises are doing. So I'm going to give this over to you now. This experiment is on you guys. If you're finding this interesting or think it could be interesting, maybe I just need to go 20 years ahead, 30, 40 years ahead, then do let me know. If you just love the idea of fans owning Premier League clubs and want to see more from this, again, let me know. Or if you've got ideas for what I need to show you to get the most out of this experiment, all of this information, put it down in the comments. If you want to see a certain screen, if you want to see certain stats, or if you think this experiment is dead in the water, let me know in the comments. If you want to see another part to this but don't really want to go into great detail, just drop a like on the video. If I get a lot of likes on this video, then I'll know that you guys are interested and that I should do another one. If you're not interested, just don't bother leaving a like, I guess. But that is going to be it for this experiment. Bit of a weird one, I know, but I thought it would be an interesting idea. But until next time, see ya.